Pleasure to introduce Julie Boerst. Is it Boerst?
Boerst, it's Boerst.
Boerst, like the soup.
I'm wondering if there's only one of us. But what I've been brought into more and more deeply recently is experientially, how is that in day-to-day life? When everything is perfect and everyone is perfect, what does that mean? How can we take the invitation to healing that comes with every moment of our embodied life? So maybe a little background on me. When I'm speaking to you, sometimes I'm listening, or I might refer to a they, because in my perception, you could say an angelic collective, or you could say little balls of light, clue me in on something. So it's like I'm listening and talking, and I'm giving the words that they supply me with. But at the same time, what they told me when I first started talking to them, which was a spontaneous experience of hearing voices and thinking I was crazy, was your voice will become our voice. We're one. Your voice is our voice. So right now what I'm experiencing is sort of the melding of that, of their voice and my voice, and just understanding that we can speak from the harmony as ourselves, because we are that harmony. Harmony is what we are. And what I love to do, what I did with them when they were telling me this stuff in the very beginning, is take it into the most challenging situation. If we are harmony, then what about fill in the blank? What about Hitler? You know, you go to Hitler and pedophiles first. That's where I went first. out for my personal life, before I would let them maybe try to tell me what to do. Explain this stuff, and maybe I'll let your hands get on this stuff. This stuff in my personal life is where the ego thinks it's in control, is where the ego, the separate sense of Julie, would maybe want to inflate itself or make something specific of itself or promote itself. So we'll go back at a distance from the individual, and we'll say, what about Hitler? How is that a healing opportunity for all of us? And if we're all perfect, how is Hitler perfect? And the way it's perfect is that every one of us, if you could imagine every physical being as an angel in disguise. And the disguise, the way they appear to you, is the way you have cued them up. If you can think of a slot machine, and then it stops, and if you can think of many parallel universes and many, many different experiences available to all right this second, how does it stop? How does it seem to you when you think you're looking at a stable world and a history of a world that seems to be, standing still? This is happening now, and I can identify this, and I can identify that. Why would we bring Hitler into view in our world? Well, we do it to wake ourselves up, because we wake up together. So none of us is fully awake. We're waking each other up. Jesus is helping us. Jesus could be, talked about as the manager of the wake up. And when things happen in our world, it's because through our thought and belief patterns, we brought them into being. So if you can think about wanting all the things you've wanted for your separate self, or all the things you've seen other separate selves wanting for themselves, all the things you've wanted to avoid in your life, and all the things you've seen separate selves trying to avoid for themselves, that's what we bring into being, both ends of the stick. So if we're hoping for peace in this world, but we want to keep this world as a place where egos rule it, we have to have an extreme lack of peace to define the substitute for peace that ego's offering us. Ego wants to control a separate world. And in ego, my sense that I'm a separate one and that I could harm you or be harmed. Ego promotes that sense through repetitive thoughts and beliefs. So if you take a whole day and you watch every thought that's disturbing, that crosses your mind, make a real practice of this. That is how the world stops, like that slot machine stops on that setting. This freaked me out at first, because I thought, well, then Hitler's my fault. But there is no fault. Fault is the creation of the ego, and it's part of what keeps us running on these hamster wheels of judgment and projection. When you think of the future, do you think of good things happening or bad things happening? Just be honest, because I think of bad things happening sometimes. And I get afraid, and I get worried, and I think it's somebody's fault, right? And can you see how we kind of leapfrog into futures, where we predict other futures? But of course we know intellectually all our powers right now, all our powers in the now. Yet we persist in leaping ahead into a future and in predicting a future. And as soon as we do that, we have to find fault in a physical being and blame that one. Could be ourselves, could be somebody else, could be a collective, could be all the citizens of the earth, could be all the citizens of one country. Doesn't matter, as long as we find out who's to blame. But as long as we're looking for who to blame and how to solve a problem through the lens of blame, we cannot hold blame in our minds at the same instant that we hold responsibility in our minds. Just like we can't hold love in our minds at the same instant that we hold hate. Hate obscures the love that always is. Love always is. Love can't be changed. Love is unchangeable. And the awakening is about returning to the fact. The only fact there is. There's one fact, and it's that love is and it's unchangeable. All the other facts are highly, highly, highly times infinity changeable. Our physical world is very, very changeable. But if the ego thinks about drastic changes to come in our physical world, the ego will talk about climate change or war or the rapture or something very, very scary. Well, why are we so scared about a dramatic change in what we collectively experience? Well, they told me, and the Course in Miracles tells me the same thing. It's because we're afraid of love. So when you think about the worries that the news brings up, or the sense of blame that might come up when you're engaged in activism, and you're certain that a certain separate one is responsible for a certain dysfunction, that is, I gotta be careful. Okay, it is the hamster wheel of ego, it is. But if your heart's calling is somewhere, some particular where, and that heart's calling is obviously in an activist organization, or then don't listen to me. Because your heart's calling can't depend on anybody else's judgment of what anything else is. Your heart's calling is your heart's calling. Because the only truth there is in the world, love, is so very simple. That when we just abide in that love and ask it to tell us what to say and what to do, we come to it stupid. Come to love stupid. It's really good to be stupid. I know schools tell you the opposite. I used to be a teacher. Please come to love stupid, because love supplies everything. That's what I'm doing right now. For the past few weeks, ever since I knew I'd be speaking here, every time somebody says, you're going to be speaking here on this date, Ego Julie says, but what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And I think I get a hint of it, and then do you know what Ego Julie does? She starts decorating the Christmas tree. Oh, we could say this, and they really need to hear that, and then I get stopped. I get stopped the second I say, they really need to hear that. And they ask me to put my ornaments down, because what is coming through me is not a lesson for you because you're deficient. What is being spoken is coming from the desire of all of us to be happy. We want to be happy. And just like you could choose love, or you can choose hate or fear, you can choose being right, knowing where the blame is, knowing what's going on, knowing what a physical cause is. Or you can choose to be happy. And if you choose to be happy, you're taken from the idea of blame to the idea of responsibility. So if I go to the area of responsibility, I used to think I was responsible in a way that demanded that I control my actions, my physical actions and my input in the world, and that I constantly judge what my input in the world was and whether or not it was okay, whether or not it's environmental enough or kind enough or organic enough or vegetarian enough or unschooling enough and home birthing enough. And I had so many words for ideals that I thought I had to try to meet in order to be good enough. But then I noticed as soon as I hung on to any ideal, I made myself better than somebody else. And that hurts. That hurts a lot. I didn't realize how deep that suffering went to hang on to an ideal that would make myself better, or in the flash of an eye, if somebody outreasoned me, then worse than somebody else. That's where all that suffering comes from. All the evaluation and all the judgment. So if I come to love stupid, I know nothing. I don't know anything. But love knows everything, so it's okay. And if the body needs to do something, like fall off a bike, as an invitation to everybody else to come into the center and say, what does this mean? What happened? Where is he? Is okay? We all came into that space to get our questions answered, right? Everything the body needs to do when it's operated by love, it does. Anything the body needs to say when it's operated by love, it does. But I probably have to stop 3,000 times a day and remind myself of this very simple fact. So, coming back to the idea of responsibility, I misapplied it to action and to speech. If I speak very carefully and say the right words, or if I act very carefully, maybe we can undo what we've done wrong here. I didn't know I was going to go there. Whenever I had an indicator that in the past couple of weeks that I would go there, I would get afraid. Like, I don't want to mess with people's environmentalism. I don't know how to do that. That used to be really important to me. But this is what I'm being told to say right now. So, where I'm being told to apply the idea of responsibility is in thought and in belief. Because what we experience is the effect. What we think and what we believe is the cause. And if you come to love stupid, then I know people might present you with a lot of evidence that you're bad or somebody's bad or doomsday is coming. You can find a lot of evidence of that. But if you come to love stupid, you don't know any of that. You're innocent. You're the Christ. And you really don't know any of that. You don't know in the now moment that any wrong has been done to anybody, ever. And that's what all the supposed wrongdoings in our world are inviting us to. If the simplicity of love is not sexy enough for us to pay attention to, not because we're bad, just because we made this world as a distraction, and it's a very effective distraction. If that's not enough, then we'll have a riveting experience that just stops us in our tracks, either an experience out there in the world that we're viewing, or one that seems to happen to us personally, that'll help us ask these big questions. What is going on here? And to find our desire, to help us become aware of that deep, deep desire. I want to be happy. I want everybody else to be happy. That's all I want. And if that's really all you want, then the innocence of everybody will come into view, come into very sharp view. And this is where I have to thank Jim. Now, one of the things that's been repeated to me over the past few weeks has been, thank you for your service. You know how we get encouraged to say that to service people, the people in the military. Thank you for your service. And I had to get over the idea, like, they're killing people, I'm not, to a point where I could genuinely say, thank you for your service. Oh my gosh, you're doing what everybody else does, and you're all equally important, you're so great. But now I can say that to everybody. Thank you for your service. But the way our fellow beings serve us in their costumes of bodies and roles is not just by giving us what we want, or by enacting a world that is in alignment with an ideal created by the ego. That's not how they do it. They do it by playing tons of different and very confusing roles. And for me, when I met Jim, he was like a spiritual inspiration. I could see him so active and having ideas and implementing them. But in one particular conversation I had with him, and I can't even remember the specifics, disquiet came into my heart. And the Julie ego became sure Tim is a sexist. And also during the conversation, I couldn't shake it. I could not shake it, even with help, And I was just told, but come back to it later. So I did. And then I was shown. Without that interaction between you two, you would not have known that you have thought patterns and beliefs that are purely based on sex, on somebody's sex and what they're going to do and how things are going to unfold. So you predict futures and outcomes purely based on whether you think and believe somebody has this or that equipment. But we're talking about him. No. He came here to highlight for you in a role-playing game that you still have this active in your ego. And if you want to be happy, yes, I want to be happy. Give us all of those. All of those thought and belief patterns that would indicate that men are this way and women are this way, and based on that there's going to be a future that's X, Y, or Z. That somebody's to blame, some individual body, when there's one of us. There's nobody to blame. Whether we're conscious of it or not, we're always perfectly enacting helpful roles for each other. So in that way, Jim helped me backwards, When people trigger you, they do it divinely, and I did let go. There's probably more. There's probably going to be another situation later in my experience where I think, I've shaken this off. No, that's an egoic statement. And then I get another chance. No, you haven't. And a dear, darling one comes to me and shows me. That's why we get triggered. Not because there's something wrong with anybody. Can you go back 500 years and give all of us the knowledge we had then? Because we were all of those guys too. And imagine if we said thank you for your service every time we felt triggered. And we went in and we allowed the thought and belief patterns that were dysfunctional to be taken from us. We see the Christ immediately. And thank you for coming today with the Christ in your name. It's a beautiful symbol. You see the Christ in everybody. The Christ is in
my dad and my mom.
Thank you. Thank you for dad and her mom. Thank you for your service, your perfect service always. Our dads and moms have always been perfect. Even if they were punching us or insulting us or complimenting us. A compliment can be as poisonous as an insult. Because the ego has a seesawing, yearning for approval, cowering and avoiding disapproval. Instead, we could just stand in the middle and say, I am love, I am innocent, so are you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. That's what this awakening is about. I can't wake up without you. You're instrumental in me getting my head out of my butt. It wouldn't happen without you. And the way you do it is perfect. You can't do it wrong. Our roles keep morphing. As we allow a change within us, the roles that the others feel attracted to play are different. And it's not like we improve so they can improve. No. I used to think it was that because that was so strong in me, like I'm not worthy, I'm imperfect, I have to try. No, okay, it's still there. It's not gone. But anyhow, I'm coming to it.
The teacher.
Yeah. I get mad like, oh, you're not done yet. But I've seen so much fall away that I can laugh now.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you guys need the outer office anymore for anything?
Do we need that?
No.
The other office behind the.
Right over there.
No.
You don't, because I'm gonna shut, because the door is locked, and I didn't want to shut it and lock you out.
The nursery
Thank
area, you can't do
That, well, that's, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sorry. Thanks.
Now that was divine for me, because in this context, being interrupted, no problem. I got no problem. Aren't I laid back about that? Okay, watch me at home with my 4 kids, and watch me attain the perspective of, I have been interrupted for the last time. And that's why kids are so perfect, just as they are. Even though we try to train them into pleasing us, we try so hard because we really don't want to be bothered. But we don't want to be knocked off our pedestal of ego.
And that brings to mind Saturday morning, I had 25 calls, all within an hour. And they were all important, they truly were important. And then we were ready to get out the door and there were several more, and I'm glad I took them. But you're right, it was just a tried my patience every time. But they were all important, they truly were for this specific thing going on. And it's interesting. I just said, okay, this day is going to unfold as it unfolds.
Right.
And it was perfect, just the way it unfolded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the beauty of it, of the beauty of discovery, that every moment is perfect and it's for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, well, do you want to make comments?
Oh, sure. Any questions or comments?
Any comments?
We're good.
So anything that's like a shock, like even when Jim died, you know, that was a shock.
Mhm.
And especially now, well, they just walked out, but
Even though I never knew Jim, it does seem like a shock when he died. But the way you guys have been talking about him seems like he was very special.
Yeah,
You guys are
special.
spiritless.
Everyone here is special.
Special as
Everybody's
everybody is.
special.
Like that beautiful feeling that we sometimes wait until the body's passed. If we have all the time.
I pretty much know what it feels like losing somebody very special. Like I was only 3 when I lost my dad, so. And I just lost my cousin Dale like a couple months ago. I've lost so many family. I know what you guys are going through, so.
And for me, I had a friend who called me and let me know because he didn't show up for book club that same day. And it seemed, he said that it was like Jim kind of orchestrated everything, because I don't like thunder and lightning, and Jim knew that, and got us together. And we had a toast for him that night during the thunder and lightning, and we talked about him. And what was really interesting, before he came over, I was crying, and I said, "Why, Jim?" And I go out loud, I go, "Why the bike?" And as clear, I mean really clear as day, I heard his laughter, and he said, and it's almost like I saw him flip his hands up, and he said, "Ah, that's so funny." He goes, "How else would you have me go?" and it was as clear as day. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's still here. It was just that strange, but that poignant. And he was laughing. He was saying, "Hey, that was the best way to go, was on that bike," you know? And I just thought that was fascinating. And when I told my friend Jim, he goes, and Jim Bryden said to me, "Well, if anybody I'd be able to get through, it would be you." And he did. I was just amazed. I was absolutely amazed.
It's
Yeah.
perfect.
I sometimes see the spirit of my dad, so. At least I at least see his spirit, so I know he's okay.
When you were talking about being in the present, I had an experience just about a week ago, or a little more. But my son and I have a very big tug in our relationship. My way of verbalizing it is when he got into his teens, because we were extremely close as he was a baby, and as he got into his latter teens, he developed way too much testosterone for any human being to ever have. But that said, we have our tugs, and he tends to use my grandchildren as weapons. You know, I can see them if I do what he wants me to do, and if not, then I can't, and whatever. But I noticed a week or two ago, and he came over to my house, and I was already projecting that in the future. And the way I was treating him, I was very cold, very unemotional, very detached, very cold. And I started to look at that and realized I'm not in the present with my son, my baby boy, at all. I'm in the future already anticipating that he's going to hurt me. The defenses are up.
Yeah.
I'm not showing the defenses. I'm withholding them, going, okay, I'm a good person here. I'm not gonna be mean to him. I'm just gonna be a good person, but I'm not gonna feed into it. And I started looking at that. It's like, wow, I'm so caught up in the future that I'm forgetting the now, and I just dropped all of that. And we had a good day, and just yesterday he came over telling me the success of his business, which I'd like to share with you in a minute. But he came over and we just started talking, and I was very proud of him for that. And he's severely dyslexic, and yet he was able to read to me a brochure that he and his wife created without faltering. And I just had said to myself when I talked to him on the phone before he came over that I was going to remain present. And it just blew me away, and by the end of the visit we were hugging and tearing up with each other about, you know, just being mother and son. And he may hurt me again in my future, but I'm, you know, now willing to let all that go and just be present with him. And the other information about his business is he and his wife just started a nonprofit for dogs. And what they're looking for is warehouse space. If anybody knows, they'll be able to serve. They're going to get free food and supplies, enough to distribute between 150 miles of Binghamton, and Binghamton will be the hub if we can get this warehouse space for them. They will be on the map with this nonprofit, and you know, so I'm looking for anybody that wants to work with the project on any level, and if anybody knows about, you know, any warehouse stuff, I'd be really interested. But thank you.
There's a heart's calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on that part where you talked about the outer world being the effect of the actual cause of our thoughts and beliefs from previous. The Greeks used to define the past as being in front of us. And that's the concept there, is what we had thought and believed in the past is what we see in the present in front of us today. I always try to remember that. Anything out there is a direct result of what I thought and believed earlier.
And we want to keep recycling on the hamster wheel or
I've
not.
heard people say that nothing in this world happens by mistake. I have come to think nothing in this world happens without purpose. And the purpose is to look at what caused this to be manifested. And again, 3,000 times a day. 70 times, 70 times a day.
How many breaths do we take?
There you go.
All right. Anybody else?
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Jim. It's so weird to have you talking up there and I'm hearing you back.
Before we start, first order of business is some type of moment of silence for our dear departed friend Jim.
Yeah.
I don't know. Everybody knew Jim, but he was here last week. Now he's not.
He is.
Wait a minute, who's arguing with that?
His gain is our loss. And quite frankly, if I were to leave the body tomorrow, I'd come back here, but I have other places to go first. Maybe he's not here today, but fond memory of Jim Ryder.
Hi, Jim.
We love you.
We love you.
Thank you, Jim.
Enjoy your new journey. You've helped us you've enlightened us on it too.
He was quite a gift. He's a gift. He's a gift.
Thank you, Jim.
For all you were, not for all you are.
Now for the call to worship, it's on the top of the page of our order of service.
There is but one presence
and
and
one
one power
power
in the universe and in my life.
God the good and omnipotent.
one power. Good. Don't be deceived by Fox News. And you got music there, Rose?
Yes.
Okay, Rose is going to play a song. And it's on the song sheet, Be Peace Expressing. Is that the one?
Yes.
And find a new way. Tomorrow's upon us. The future is here. Let's love one another and release all our fear and be peace. Expressing in the world, be the joy and the light of the Spirit, expressing in the world, be love, expressing in the world, be the heart of the Spirit, expressing in the world. Make a commitment. Open your heart. Don't stand there in judgment and keep apart. God lights the way now. Our pathway's clear. Loving each other. Eliminates fear. Be peace. Expressing in the world. Be the joy and the light of the Spirit, expressing in the world. Be love, expressing in the world. Be the heart of the Spirit, expressing in the world. Be the hope and the heart of the Spirit, expressing in the world.
It's telling us. But there's no better paycheck, believe me. Might be a hard job, but it's not no better paycheck. Are there any announcements?
We have an announcement for tomorrow is a special day for Jim, to honor Jim and celebrate Jim. So there'll be a calling at 10 o'clock at the Unitarian Universalist Church on Riverside Drive in Binghamton, and then 11 o'clock a funeral with Reverend Suggs and Reverend Taylor. So come and join us.
Thank you. I see an announcement here for September 21st from Stand for Peace.
Yeah.
World's First International Day of Peace Festival. And there's a flyer back there on the back table for that too. Anybody know our speakers lineup?
Next week is Pamela.
Okay, Moss.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Next week, today is the 18th, that's the 25th. I don't know who Brianna has for Labor Day weekend.
I don't know, I called her, but I got no response.
She tells me I'm speaking on the 8th.
Oh,
We'll go from there. And we open our hearts and doors to new individuals and families. We know that the right, perfect people are joining us at the right, perfect time. It's time to say hello and quickly greet each other. We do have one new face. Did you say your name was Christina?
Yes, it's actually really Christine. I was named after Christ the Lord.
Okay, that sounds good.
But everybody calls me Chrissy or Christine, so I don't mind what you guys call me.
Well, we'll recognize the Christ in you. That's what we do here. And that's what we take time to do now.
Okay, reach your neighbor.
Herding cats usually, you know. Time to share special unity moments. And that is periods during the last week or just insights or anything that came to you this week that you felt a closer presence to the divine mind. You got the floor.
Me?
Yeah. You got the floor, Carol.
I was with Jim when he died. I was ahead of him. My sister and I were ahead of him, and my friend,
On bikes?
yes,
Okay.
my friend was behind him, and they called, stop, turned around, Jim was on the ground. He had floated, he must have had a heart attack on the bike in front of my friend Faye. He veered across both lanes, and in the next lane, he wobbled and fell over, and landed, never moved, never regained any kind of consciousness. He was already gone, and
In body.
and so of course it was traumatic for me because Jim and I used to sit together at lunch and talk all the time, all about spirituality and all his beliefs. And I was thinking, Jim told me he was going to live to be 105. This can't be right. But, and it took forever because there was no cell service. But immediately, a man saw it happen, drove through and said, I'm going to where there's cell service. And so anyway, that night, I was pretty shook up, as you can imagine. We didn't know for sure that he was gone because we didn't want to move him. And nobody knew CPR anyway, but it wouldn't have made any difference. He was making those sounds that happen when air is released from your body occasionally. But that night, I thought, oh man, this will be a really rough night. And every time I awoke, there was Jim, there was love. I knew that he was fine and was happy, and he would never want any of us to worry or feel anything but gladness. He's with us.
Of course, the miracle describes it as just gently laying your body aside. Yeah,
Well,
it sounds that's the way he did it. It's just gently laid it aside and said, okay, let's move on. What's next?
Yep.
Well,
He
thanks
had
for
a
sharing
heart
that.
monitor on because he'd been tired a lot. But Jim didn't believe in any medication, so maybe a statin would have been a good idea, but who knows?
Medications that work, it bruises all over the place. It's nasty.
Yeah, one side effect leads to another, leads to more medication.
Well, he didn't believe in medication.
I don't either.
But, if he hadn't had clogged arteries, it might not have happened.
You never know.
Was he 75 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he lived a long life, I would say.
Very
You
fruitful.
call that long?
Yeah.
You're not old enough yet.
Oh, you're not old enough.
My parents, yeah.
He lived a very fruitful, productive life. His fruit remains. The seeds that he planted, I'm sure, are flourishing. So,
Oh, yeah.
and it's called legacy, I guess.
And
He
his
leaves
wife,
a very loving legacy.
his wife had, didn't buy into any of this. That's why it's a Unitarian church. She didn't even mention it, though. I mean, he was out 2 or 3 nights a week talking about this stuff to everybody. But it wasn't part of their life together, although he said, she's my anchor. And they had a wonderful life together. So,
Well, prayers to him, to his family and his survivors, and to all those that were close. I've only known Jim through here. It's just within the last year or so that I actually talked to him.
yeah.
When I got to know him in Endicott, I was still an outside looking in. And it was just last year or so, they got a little insight. Did you have something? Julie? Did you have
Oh.
any others?
Mine was very simple. There was a double rainbow yesterday.
Oh, wasn't it?
And we lost our minds over it. I was supposed to go get my son, and my 3 daughters and I went out and saw it and totally forgot what we were supposed to be doing. But I thought, what sounds too crazier, a double rainbow or the ice cream truck? I get everything.
Ice cream.
Well, the double rainbow was pretty good.
Yeah.
3 daughters? I think you have 2.
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old and then the twins.
But one's a boy.
Yeah, the boy's a 14. He's the one we were supposed to go get and we forgot about for a minute.
Well, I have one last Sunday, might have noticed I wasn't here, but went down to Wilkes-Barre, near northeastern Pennsylvania. It was Diane Sickler's last service before retirement, so went down to wish her well, and she was well received. They were talking about the pews being filled more than ever before, and people were showing love, and we had a nice dinner afterwards. And Diane McCarty was there, and she gives everybody a warm, embracing hug. And Clifford says hello and best wishes. We'll leave it with that. Yeah. But it was nice. It was nice to be there, and I hope I brought goodwill and gratitude that we here in Binghamton shared for Diane Sickler, because
Thank you.
she was a very important part of this. Very important part. And now that I can't even tell that secret yet, but I know one secret that I'm not allowed to tell. But keeping that in mind, she's very important to the unity of the Southern Tier.
I enjoyed listening to her.
Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, when you mentioned ice cream truck, it reminded me, today is also the mural painting art day for the, I guess, town of Binghamton. It's going to be at the Lindsay Park off of Chenango Street. They're going to have all this artwork, activities, and then ice cream from 2 to 4. And it's actually from 12 to 4, but then ice cream is from like 2 to 4. So I was thinking of going to that since I saw ice cream.
Blueberry ice cream?
I don't know, hopefully.
Christina, you have a hand?
Well, my little miracle baby, he just turned 4, so.
Very good.
He's my miracle baby because I actually almost lost him when I gave birth. He had the cord wrapped around his neck twice. But thanks to the doctors at Wilson Hospital, I thank them dearly. They saved my little boy's life, and he just turned 4 August 7th.
Oh, great.
It's time to bless our prayer request, and we've got to remember that prayer is not just the things that we petition to God, but our thoughts are prayers too. So let's bless our thoughts and keep them pure, or hopefully to our best of our abilities. Speaking from personal experience, not too good, but the best of our abilities. Remember that our thoughts are prayers, and that we bless all prayers of all people. And the blessing of the request is on the order of service. You say it with me.
God's all-encompassing love is doing its perfect work in and through us. Wholeness is established in every area of our lives,
And so it is.
Would you be willing to read the daily word?
Sure.
Right in line with the music today, too. Brother's message.
Okay. Sunday, August the 18th, World Peace. I am doing my part for world peace. Over and over, we are told that world peace begins with peace in our hearts. That's very good news. It means I can contribute to world peace every day. I don't have to be a diplomat or a high-ranking government official to play a role in moving the planet towards peace. I only have to remember to choose peace in every situation. Peace is far more refraining from physical violence. Peace is kinder thoughts and deeds. Peace is giving the benefit of the doubt. Peace is honesty and trust. Peace is even simply courtesy. Each time I see the face of God in another human being and treat that person accordingly, I contribute to world peace. And from Colossians 3:15, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in the one body, and be thankful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today it's time for prayer meditation. Vera, did you want to lead some meditation? You know how I am.
You're good.
I'm an intellect. I
Yeah.
don't get into meditation very well except for thoughts, but if you don't want to, you want to lead some meditation?
Well,
Yeah, Julie could.
are you sure it's not you?
Mary? Anybody? Who
I
wants?
do this.
All right,
My meditation is I'm going to throw a thought out there and have to think on it.
relax, close your eyes if you want to, keep them open if you want to. And let's all go to where we abide together all of the time, which is not a physical place.
Mm.
It's the heart, or the heart is the symbol. And oh, do you see Jim there? There he is. He's waving at us. So this is where we are all the time. We're in peace together because we are peaceful and harmonious beings. So let's just be for a minute or two.
David, his wife, and another lady. Oh, that'd be sad. They were here for so long.
And as you exhale, you can invite yourself to feel all thoughts of disquiet of any kind leaving you because they were never needed. And as you inhale, you can feel the worthiness that you are, that all others are. And what comes in for you is inspiration. You breathe all through the day, you have unending access to inspiration. And if you can see how supported everybody else is and their unending access to inspiration, then you can acknowledge the reality of how supported you are in every situation.
Oh, I have no idea.
And just end with a big thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Special music. Special music.
I was inspired to write this song last year when Jim was the speaker. He's been the speaker at least 3 times, probably much more than that, but 3 that I remember. And this was the time where he spoke about channeling. And so I wrote this song to accompany his talk that week. And then several months later, I played the song again here, and Jim heard it. And I think the first time I played it with the keyboard, the second time I played it with my guitar. And he's like, "Oh, I really like that song," like as if he had heard it for the first time. And I said, "Oh, you've heard this before," you know. And I told him the story, and he's like, "Oh, it's a beautiful song." So that's why I chose this for today, and hope you enjoy it.
Water
what?
What a gift.
Beautiful, yeah. Thank you.
It's all about allowing peace within. In absolute surrender, so serenity begins. For when the storm subsided and calm becomes a wave, it's all about allowing it to stay. It's all about allowing love to flow. It's setting down your burden and just simply letting go. For as you seize the struggle and love pours through your heart, it's all about allowing it to start. Now feel it warm and shining, new with promise, strong, undying love, different than any you have known. And now the seed is sown. It's all about allowing change to show, then living in the moment like it's all you'll ever know. And though it won't be easy, you can truly say you tried, for it's all about allowing it inside. And now the seed is sown. It's all about allowing love to flow. It's setting down your burden and just simply letting go. For as you seize the struggle and love pours through your heart, it was all about allowing. All about allowing it to start.
One quick announcement before we close. It is the third Sunday of the month, so it's covered dish. We're going to have it in behind the nursery in that little small room where there's air conditioning. Join us for it.
Can you say that all again, please?
It's covered dish dinner.
Yeah, where is it?
It's going to be in the little room behind, off the nursery
Oh, okay.
where we had it last month because the basement's still not finished.